If you don't know what to draw or your drawings are just looking too stiff, here's some really easy warm-ups that will loosen you up and train your arm to draw better, more fluid type lines. You might want to just draw this on Photoshop, digitally, or just any kind of scrap paper that you have so that you don't blow through your sketchbook and waste paper. The first one is just draw a couple dots, and in one single stroke just try to connect it to the other side and then go back to the starting point. And you just do this a few times. It trains with your hand-eye coordination, and this is especially helpful if you're drawing digitally like I am right now, where there's like a kind of a disconnect between your hand and the program. It's not 100% accurate like paper would be. So if you just got a tablet or a Wacom Cintiq, this is just do this 10 minutes a day. Just connect all these little random lines around in different directions, and you'll drastically improve your digital art in no time. But you don't want to just like do these small sketchy type lines. You want to just do unbroken lines. Like, don't stop in the middle. Just try to make it to the other side. The more you do this, the less you'll have to think about it. It's really just thinking with your eyes. Oh hey, this is Mikey Buzan, and today's video is sponsored by youtube.com/MikeyBuzan, where you can subscribe and hit the notifications bell to be notified of more videos like the one you're watching right now. And on this channel you'll see animations and tutorials and more. And people have been leaving glowing reviews. So that's enough from me. Now back to the show. After drawing some long lines, it's good to loosen up your muscles with some circles. Just draw a big circle. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just fill the whole page with some big circles, just going around a few times in long unbroken lines. And you don't want to draw it with your wrist. You want to use your whole arm in these big sweeping motions. This will help your drawings have better shapes in them. They won't be as stiff. Like if you're just drawing with your wrist, then it's hard to get the gesture of what you're trying to draw. Like using your wrist is good for going small, get little details, but just fill in the whole page with circles, smaller circles, filling in the gaps. It doesn't have to be perfect. All these exercises are just really about loosening up your arm and just drawing shapes, because everything's just made up of shapes. So you have to go back to the basics. Like, you never really leave the basics. Even when you're doing a complicated piece of art, it still all rests on basic shapes. So then just like go inside these big circles and draw littler circles. I'm just doing this fast. Maybe if you're doing it clockwise, do some counterclockwise. Just keep drawing all these circles, man. And the next thing you could do is some C and S shapes. So just draw these C's. That way you could draw a backwards C. That's kind of looking PG-13. Let me draw a bunch of C type shapes going all different directions, different sizes. Again, this isn't finished artwork. It's not about looking good. It's about getting your brain in drawing mode where you aren't thinking with words. You're just seeing shapes. You're more thinking with your eyes as opposed to any kind of logical, categorical type of thinking where you're thinking with words and categorizing things by words. You're really just trying to see shapes and feel the shapes. Now, another thing you can do is just do a random type of shape. I don't like that. Just like do a wobbly random shape, go around a few times and start to imagine the form inside. Draw some other lines that follow the contour. It's almost like looking down at a map where you have all these contour lines. You just draw these long flowy lines that follow the shape that you laid down. It just kind of ripples out. This is a good way to, well, I mean, you could kind of just make like some abstract art this way, but I just imagine like it's almost like liquid. Draw some little ones here, and yeah, it's just, you're just feeling the flow and letting your arm flow out without actually planning. So a lot of times if you're having trouble getting started drawing, literally just putting one line down is key, and then you just improvise off of that one line, that fluid line that you put down. Just improvise and draw around it with more fluid lines that are kind of in a similar pattern or shape, but you just sort of modify it and change it and draw smaller ones and modify the shape. And then of course drawing 3D shapes like a square. This is just a good way to start thinking about form. The first few exercises is good for getting your loosened up and getting ready for gestures and dynamic motions. But to build upon gestures, if you want to get more 3D looks, this is a good way to practice. Just draw, the basic shapes that everything's made up of, then imagine it as if it were 3D, and you draw these construction lines going through it. And maybe try just like all the main shapes. Here's to do a cylinder, you could do like, draw this oval up here, and then draw an oval down here, and then connect it, these long lines, like the first exercise, and then draw some more ovals in the middle to define the form. And after practicing this a few times, what you can do is start imagining the shapes squashing and stretching. This is especially helpful if you're into animation. So instead of just drawing a regular circle, draw one that's getting squashed, like this. And then, while maintaining the volume, imagine this same circle stretching up. So it's the same, this is like the next frame if it were animated, or the next key pose rather. There'd probably be some in-betweens, but this is like the same circle, but going, the energy is being stretched up now. So just try that with different shapes. Like here's a square shooting out from the ground like a skyscraper, kind of tilting backwards. You just invent different shapes, imagine different things, and just practice it before starting on your animation work or your painting or whatever you're doing. This really will save you time in the long run because you'll be warmed up and you won't make as many mistakes, and your drawings will have a better fluidity to it because you've warmed up your muscles and especially your brain, which is the most important muscle of them all. Here's something I was drawing earlier. I was imagining like an egg that is split in half. So it's kind of like hovering, but just like you just can invent stuff, like just have fun. But the next little thing I'm gonna do is a bouncing ball, which even if you're not a animator, this is good practice for it's hard to. Okay, so now last thing I'm gonna try is just imagining a bouncing ball. Like this is the ground, it's just gonna bounce up, and it loses its energy on each bounce. But I'm not gonna actually animate. I'm just gonna imagine the ball coming from up here and stretching down and then squashing on its hit and then stretching back up, and then it returns back to its circular shape as it reaches the apex of its bounce, because it's going slower up here, and then it kind of clusters together as it loses its momentum. But then as it comes back down, it starts to stretch towards the ground. And notice I'm not drawing another one here. I'm just eliminating the a frame that would go here and just immediately having it squash upon impact. Because if this were animated, that would give it eliminating this like contact pose that would be like right here would give it more energy, more strength. So yeah, just doing this quickly. Not perfect, but you get the idea. So yeah, just circular type shapes and long, unbroken, fluid shapes, like almost like you're drawing strands of hair or ribbons. Just inventing these patterns and shapes, it really helps to loosen you up and will help your drawings have not be so stiff. Because when you start out drawing, you might just want to like just draw with your wrist and draw all stiff. But doing these little exercises for 10 minutes or so a day, especially if you're just getting started digitally, it really helps. It's not something you can just think about or understand intellectually. You have to actually do this, move your arm around, because it's like playing a sport or learning an instrument. You have to actually do it for your brain to make those connections and be able to perform as opposed to just understand. So I hope this was helpful. Please like and subscribe if you liked it, and let me know what you think in the comments of what I should do next, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.